Here we go. What's up, Tech SEO Boost? Look at that, it's crazy. Thanks to Paul, Megan, and the whole Catalyst team, Beth, for pulling this off. This is awesome. So I'm here to talk about internal link building or internal link optimization. But what I'm actually here to talk about are power curves and power laws. So power curves are a universal principle that once you have the awareness for, you kind of start to see them everywhere. They're also known as the Pareto principle, discovered by Wilfredo Pareto, and they can be applied to lots of different fields. So for example, that a few people own the highest riches or most riches, that a few ranking factors have the highest impact, or that a few startup investments bring the highest returns. And we also start to see this all over in SEO. So this, for example, is, I know it's hard to recognize, but it's actually a graph showing the pages that rank for the most keywords or bring in the highest traffic. And we find the same with backlinks. So a few pages get the most links. And then also a few pages are crawled the most by Google. The question is, why is this actually important? And the answer is because SEO is getting much more complex, right? We have more ranking factors out there. Google is using machine learning. We have industry-specific rank factors, all that kind of stuff. So we have to focus more on the ranking factors that we can really control, and internal linking is one of these. This, by the way, is an image of the references of Bible verses between each other. So this is kind of OG backlinks back in the day. No offense. Yeah, so in the end, we got to listen to Arnold, right? Use the power of internal links. That's what this is really all about. And it's going to come back to power curves. So my name is Kevin Indig. I run SEO at Atlassian, and I mentor startups at the German Accelerator. And I asked myself, leading up to this topic, what are the ways that we can really calculate internal PageRank and optimize the internal link graph? And there's the manual approach, where we use something like Screaming Frog or crawl our site in some sort of way, and then calculate it manually by applying the PageRank algorithm. Or we can use a tool to basically get a PR value out of this. But there is a problem, because these models are kind of inaccurate. And the reason is because of PageRank. So when we take a step back and look at the original PageRank patent or model, it often talks about the PageRank value between sites. But what I want everybody to recognize is that PageRank can be applied between sites and within sites, websites that is. And that's very important. So you probably saw a couple of these models where we kind of map out the links between pages, and then we're able to calculate the PageRank value for each of these pages. The problem is when we add links from other sites to this model, the PageRank value actually changes. And this is really, really important to consider and to remember, because it means that the PageRank value that we calculated in the first step might actually be inaccurate, because some of the pages might get very strong backlinks from another site. And so this is where we need a model that combines internal links and external links. You can still hear me? And this is what I came up with. It's called TIPR, which stands for True Internal PageRank. And it combines PageRank, KaiRank, which is an inverse PageRank, log files, and backlinks in one big mashup. And this is how it looks. So you can apply this, or you can use it to calculate the true internal PageRank of your pages. You can identify technical problems, and you can monitor the progress after you came up with some recommendations. So you can monitor how well you're doing in a three-step process. So you first do an analysis of your site based on a crawl. Then you come up with recommendations based on that. And then you monitor with the server log files. And I'll show you exactly how that goes. So in the first step, you want to crawl your site. You want to calculate the internal PageRank and KaiRank. You want to add backlinks from whatever source that you wish. You want to add the crawl rate, and then you want to identify the pages that are the strongest and the weakest, and kind of flatten this power curve. And I'll show you a couple more stats to make it a bit more understandable. But this is what I call the Robin Hood principle. So you basically want to take PageRank from the strongest pages and give it to the weakest ones. You want to equalize the internal link graph, so to say. So let's talk some results. I first applied this to a smaller site at Atlassian, did it manually with Excel, pulled a couple of stats, and saw some pretty good results. You see after the initial dip, this is Christmas, traffic, organic traffic that is kind of shooting a little bit through the roof. So then I got hungry and I thought, yeah, okay, let's do some more with that. Then I pulled the stats from a bigger site at Atlassian. Is our marketplace, has around 40,000 URLs. I pulled that with Odisto. It's a German tool, good old German engineering, and calculated PageRank and KaiRank. And then I extracted a ton of backlinks. And it's important to note that you don't always have to extract each and every single link. What you really want to understand is how high the domain pop per URL is. So how many different domains are linking to each of the URLs. So you're pulling the backlinks per URL, so to say. And then I use Nozzle to monitor the keyword rankings. And at this point, big shout out to Derek from Nozzle, and thanks for letting me monitor the keyword rankings. It was very crucial in the analysis and the success of this project. And what I found out in the end was that we have a couple of these power curves. So for example, most of these URLs are being crawled only a couple of times. And then we have this one URL which is actually crawled by far, and it's the robots.txt, which is really interesting. Good to know, though. And then I pulled the distribution of internal links per URL. So what you see here is that a few URLs get by far the highest amount of internal links, which is the power curve that I mentioned before. I did the same with the outgoing links. So this is where we come back to KaiRank and look at how much PageRank is given away per URL, and we see a different distribution. And when we put this all together, we see that there's a very unequal distribution between outgoing and incoming PageRank within the website. Whereas in an optimal world, would want to have a much flatter curve. So what did I learn by this in the end, and how do we apply that? So in the end, what you do with Tipper is you accumulate a lot of data, whether in BigQuery or a spreadsheet or whatever you have. You pull the crawl frequency, meaning how often Google crawls your site. You pull PageRank, KaiRank, and you pull backlinks. And you can use several types of values. Again, in this case, I used the domain pop. And the problem that you have when you have lots of data that doesn't really fit together well is you want to make it comparable. And the way to do that is to rank it. So you rank each of the columns, meaning the URL with the highest domain pop gets a 1, number 2 gets a 2, et cetera, et cetera. And then you take the average of all of these values, you resort it, and then you get a list of the actual strongest page types and the weakest ones. This is a distribution from the crawl that I did, the example that I mentioned earlier. And I identified the page types that get the most PageRank and have the highest KaiRank. So from our marketplace, we have category sites, which you see on the left. And you can already see that they get a ton of PageRank, but they don't give away a lot. Their KaiRank is relatively low. And at the same time, you see another page types like the add-ons, which give away way too much PageRank and don't get enough. This is what this all comes down to. When you look at the homepage of our marketplace and you scroll all the way down to the bottom, you see these categories called collections here in this case, linked at the very bottom, obviously in the footer, and therefore they get a link from every other link internally. And when you look at them on a page level, on the left side, you see the categories. You see that on average, they get almost 3,000 incoming links, but they only give away 46 to other pages. And at the same time, on the right side, you see the add-ons, which get only a few links, but give away way too much. These are actually version histories of the add-ons that we have on our marketplace. And as you can see, each of these updates has an outgoing link. So the basic recommendation that we gave in this case is add more plugins to the category pages so they give away more links, and limit the amounts of updates that you show on these add-on sites to decrease their outgoing links. And so when we rolled out these changes, we saw a nice spike in the crawl rate. And then we also saw a nice spike in organic traffic. So within 12 months, we basically increased organic traffic by 160%. which worked fairly well. And it's obviously easier to apply to a site with a high amount of homogeneous pages, like a marketplace. So to recap that for a little bit, typically works by crawling your page, calculating PageRank and KaiRank, adding backlinks to the mix, extracting your log files to monitor the progression of your recommendations, and then look for these unequal power curves or distributions of KaiRank and PageRank throughout your site. A couple more lessons that we learned pulling this data and applying this model is, for example, that, again, the robots.txt was crawled the most, whereas the XML sitemaps is where Google spent the longest time on. So spent the longest time crawling. And then at the same time, for errors, when you think that they don't harm your site, then you want to check your server log files, because what we saw when we had a spike in 404s is that Google aggressively decreased the overall crawl rate of our site. So be careful with those guys. And then lastly, obviously there's limitations to every model. In this case, we have to apply it more often and refine it a little bit. It can only be applied to certain sizes of sites. So if you have 100 pages on your site, this is not the right way. And then lastly, I still have to find the right weighting between KaiRank, PageRank, and the crawl rate of all these pages. And then lastly, to drive this further, so in the future I want to try to automate this model a little bit, and I also want to try to apply it to predictive models, meaning applying it to a staging or test environment to then be able to predict the changes that before they're actually rolled out. And with that, I want to thank Catalyst again, I want to thank Audisto, I want to thank Nozzle, and every one of you for your attention. Thank you.